So you want to breed guppies? Well, I think you came to the right channel. Let's talk about it. If this is your first time breeding fish and you are curious about how to breed guppies, well, you're in luck. You picked a really good fish to start with. Guppies are prolific breeders. Honestly, I think they're one of the easiest fish to breed, so you're in luck. Guppy fish are sexually dimorphic, which is just a fancy way of saying that you can tell the males from the females simply just by looking at them. Typically, the males do have all the color, and they're the ones that you can spot across the room, but they can pass genetic material from the fathers to the son via the Y chromosome, and that's an extremely rare trait. The females do have larger bodies and are duller in color, but again, you can find really fancy, beautiful colored females today. But a telltale sign to tell the males from the females is looking at their anal fin. Males have a gonopodium, which is a stick-like fin, and females, you're looking for a triangular shape. They are live bears, so you don't have to deal and mess with eggs, but they do drop fry, little miniature versions of themselves about every 30 days. Female guppy fish do have the ability to drop anywhere between 1 and 200 plus guppy fry at any given time. I typically, on average, see between 15 and 50 fry each time my guppy fish drop, but don't be surprised if you do see a little less or you see a little more. But keep in mind the stress levels of your tank does have something to do with the timing of this. Sometimes she can hold them a little longer, and sometimes you might see a premature birth. So keep in mind the stress levels of your tank. You do want to keep the stress levels as low as you can. There's some stress that you just can't avoid, like bringing them home for the first time. But generally speaking, the less stress your guppies feel, the healthier fry you're going to get. When I was in college and I did my senior research, I did monitor the fry count on stress and non-stress tanks. And I found out that the guppies, which I don't recommend you stress your fish, but the ones that were stressed, they did give birth. The females did drop fry a lot more often than the stress-free tanks, but the fry were really fragile at birth, and honestly, I did lose a lot. Whereas the stress-free tanks, she didn't drop the fry quite as often, but the fry she did drop were bigger at birth, and they just looked healthier, and I just didn't lose as many when it came to her dropping them. So keep that in mind. The stress level of your tank does play a part on how you breed guppy fish. There is a difference between breeding styles when it comes to guppies. There's a sneak attack style that sometimes you will see if the guppies feel stressed because they feel like they need to breed immediately. So they won't stop chasing and harassing the females. In my stress-free tanks, it was kind of fun to watch because they kind of acted like bettas. The males would kind of swim up alongside the females and display their fins, and their colors were really rich. And it wasn't such a sneak attack all the time breeding style. So when it comes to guppy breeding, there is a difference between colony breeding and line breeding. Colony breeding, to me, I feel like is the most popular. That's really where you just get a bunch of your favorite guppies, put them in an aquarium of their own, let them have babies. You're building your colony, but keep in mind that if you don't introduce genetics after a few generations, you're going to have a really big boom in population. But I have noticed over time, if you don't introduce new genetics, you will often have a decrease in guppy fry over time, and your population will diminish, and you might even see a few bent spines. So if you do choose to colony breed, you do want to introduce new genetics every few generations. There's also line breeding, and to me this is the most fun currently because I have found a few lines that I have really liked, and I'm picking the most colorful female and male that reaches sexual maturity the fastest. I'm putting them in a tank of their own, and I am line breeding them to continue the line of guppies. So if you do wish to breed guppies, you do want to keep in mind, if you want to line breed them, colony breed them, or maybe choose a really pretty male and female from separate lines and create a line of your very own. There's endless possibilities when it comes to breeding guppies. In order to breed your guppy fish, you need to pay attention to your water quality, and it's something that you just can't look at and tell what's going on. You need to perform water changes, and you need to test your water to know when you need to do them. Your aquarium will tell you when that maintenance needs to be done, but if you expect to have healthy, happy guppies that produce really healthy fry, you need to provide them a clean aquarium. You don't want to see ammonia, you don't need to see nitrates, and you don't want to have high levels of nitrate. And the only way to get that out of your aquarium is to do water changes. And I'll leave a link in the description box where you can find a video where I go over this in a lot more detail. When it comes to breeding guppies, they really are quite simple. You usually just have to put males and females in the same aquarium for a small amount of time in order to breed them. But if you are curious about water parameters, I breed guppies in harder water. I do feel like breeding guppies is easier if you keep them in harder water. For pH, don't chase numbers. Just acclimate them to the water that you have. The fry will live the longest in your water over the parents, but they typically breed just fine anywhere between a 6.8 and an 8.0. For temperature, you can breed guppies in colder water if you would like. I have. They've done just fine. But if you want more fry, I do recommend breeding them anywhere between 72 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. The warmer water will speed up the metabolism of your guppies, so the fry will reach maturity just a little bit faster. Another thing to keep in mind is your tank setup. I wouldn't recommend going any smaller than a 10-gallon aquarium for a trio of guppies, which is 2 females to every male. If you can, always get more females than males for your aquarium, but I don't recommend for beginners to go smaller than a 10-gallon aquarium. When it comes to filtration and breeding guppies, you're going to have fun choosing the right filtration for your guppy tank. I personally like sponge filters and modifying my hang on the back filters for my guppy tanks, but again, you're going to have to experiment and have fun choosing the right filtration for your guppy tank. I have noticed that the guppies like some flow in the tank. You can find them swimming around quite often next to the filter, but you don't want it so strong that they do have trouble swimming. So choosing the right filter is going to be up to you. But again, I like modifying my hang on the back filters, and sponge filters work really well too for another tip when it comes to breeding guppies is simply turning off the light. I am notorious for not turning off my lights like I should all the time, but when it comes to breeding guppies, I promise you this is a power tip because it allows the guppies time to rest. It's really important for them to have just rest time like you and me. You'll see them laying on the bottom of the aquarium, not moving too much, and they're just taking a break and resting. But during this time, it seems like the females will hide up at the surface in the live plants, and that's usually the time when the lights are off that she does feel brave enough and safe enough to drop them fry. Also, when it comes to breeding guppies, you want to have lots of live plants in your tank if it's possible. Really, the most important part is having and providing a lot of hiding spaces for your fry and your females to go, because the males do hound the females and chase them so much because they are such prolific breeders, and the males do try to breed quite often. Providing hiding spaces for your females will allow them to get some time to relax and just get away from the males. And it is time to drop fry. It gives the females a place to go that feels a little bit more secure. And sometimes you will see the males just kind of right by the females waiting for them to drop fry so they can get a quick snack. And I feel like the more healthy, more well-fed, well-rounded diet you provide your guppies, the less predation you see right at birth. It's important to feed them once or twice a day, but don't overfeed them. You don't want them overfed and all that food just rotting at the bottom of your tank. So it's important to feed them what they can eat. And I really do like flakes like spirulina and krill, but switch it up a little bit. I do feed them a little bit of granules. I like the Aquarium Co-op's fry food. I like frozen food from time to time, but I think that a well-fed guppy, they just don't quite eat their fry quite as often. Another unique characteristic about guppy fish has to do with the females. There's two really cool things that I think the females can do that just sets them apart for me from other fish. And that's one, their ability to absorb fry. So if you do have some aggressive take mates or something that's making them feel really stressed in the tank, and she looks pregnant, but you're wondering why you're never seeing fry, it could be that she absorbed the fry because she just felt too stressed and it wasn't safe for her to drop them fry. If you are wanting to breed guppy fish, keep in mind that the females are able to hold sperm, meaning that you can take that male out of that tank and she can still produce fry for a few generations. The fry count might get a little bit smaller each generation, but keep that in mind if you are wanting to not breed guppies. I would keep a male only tank because the females do have this ability. If they've been in a tank with a male at least once and they've reached breeding maturity age, chances are she's pregnant and you will see fry. So if you don't want to breed guppies, keep males only, keep a handful. If you do wish to breed guppies and maybe you lost your male, you might still see fry yet. Using a breeder box is completely your choice. I think they work great for their intended purpose. It's just for me personally, I think they get a little too dirty too quickly with all the fry in them. But I like to use Guppy grow out tanks, which is simply just setting up a tank off to the side just for all the new fry coming my way. And I do think it works best. I've had a lot more success moving the female into the breeder box or into that guppy grow out tank a few days before she drops fry. And we'll go over signs of pregnancy soon in a future video, but you're looking for an increased gravid spot and a really boxy appearance. I do think that I had a lot more success with raising fry when I moved the female over versus just moving all the fry over one at a time after she had dropped. But there's nothing wrong with letting your females drop fry directly in the tank they are in. You can let her drop them. You might lose a few, and this is really my favorite way of raising and breeding guppies is just letting them drop into the tank they are in, letting them grow up for a few weeks, and then moving them if I do wish to move them. But you don't have to if you don't want to. Breeding guppies is really quite simple and it's entirely your choice on how you want to do it. If you want to learn more about breeding guppies, I invite you to check out ScienceGalAquatics.com and pick up your copy of my book today, all about guppy fish, the ultimate care guide, where I will teach you a lot about breeding guppies. But I'll see you in the next one.